debriefing scheduled to begin just a short time from now.
I see crosshairs and the tables. Check.
This docking port to the Zarya module's nadir or earthward-facing docking port, freeing up the aft port of Zvezda once again for oncoming docking confirmed at 8:05 a.m. Central Time, 4:05 p.m. Moscow time. And now aboard the International Space Station, hatches open at 7:36 p.m. Moscow time, 11:36 a.m. Central Time. Mike Fink manning a camera. Charles Simonyi, the U.S. spaceflight participant, floating in to be greeted by Yuri Lanchikov, the Russian cosmonaut who will be his ride home as the Soyuz commander on April 7th. Now greetings between Simonyi and Mike Fink. Simonyi first floated into the station 2 years ago and flight.
Fotókat csináltam, kérlek te is csinálj szép fotókat Magyarországról, ne feledkezz el Egyházasfaluról, Sopronról, majd küldök e-mailt, hogy...
We're ready.
Встреча была очень теплой.
Okay, you see your meeting was very warm.
Everybody here. So not to be confusing, so we had to transfer to the manual mode. Of course, we will investigate this case. Everyone was working nominally, and so all the ground services were working nominally, and all the vehicles were working nominal. So we control the situation all the way through.
Just a few minutes after that, the forward docking probe on the Soyuz retracted to bring the Soyuz and the Zvezda service module.
went to high school in Budapest, Hungary, in the communist days, and I discovered computers very early. And this was at a time. This was in 1964, 1965, when computers weren't really known by the public in general. And even I, who was a kid interested in science, I had no idea of what computers were for and how they worked, especially. And I was really frustrated by this. For all other machines, it was so easy to see how they work, a crane or a machine tool. But with a computer, it's just a box and it does these mysterious things. So I spent a lot of energy in learning about it, and surprisingly enough, I learned how they worked and learned the secrets and learned to program them. And I insinuated myself into a group of computer engineers that accepted me as a free helper and providing programming services. So that's what I was doing in high school. Hungary was a relatively poor country, and it lived on hand-me-downs, for example, from the Soviet state. So we had a computer that was obsolete even by Soviet standards, and the Soviet standards were, of course, quite ways behind the West. So probably in my age group, I must be one of the few people who had experience with the so-called first-generation computers. The Ural, which was a first-generation machine, in terms of size, was giant relative to a personal computer, but in terms of its performance, it was very similar. To give you an example, to add two numbers together took about 100 microseconds on both machines. And 100 microseconds means that it's 10,000, you can repeat it 10,000 times a second. So 10,000 additions a second. Since then, that number has increased tremendously. But just in the beginning of the personal computer revolution, we were back to those small figures. Also, the memory capacity was pretty weak. We are talking about the order of 10 to 12 kilobytes. Machine looked very much like computers looked in 1950s science fiction movies. So when people are talking about flashing lights, they really are describing the real first-generation computers. The reason that those lights were flashing is because every bit of memory in the processor, at least, was represented or implemented rather by a value of $2. That would be probably like $150,000 or $200,000 now. Similarly, the laser printer was about $500,000. It cost about $500,000. So very few of those were built, but one of our eyes was crying, the other one was laughing. The MS-DOS part enjoyed the tremendous success. It was on the way of becoming a dominant operating system. And the application part was sad that our interpreted approach wasn't optimal for that particular environment. So we started by following in 123's footsteps and created a project called Odyssey, internal project that was going to take 123 head on. This never happened because in the same time scale, the Macintosh appeared on the horizon, which was a great news because finally there was one machine that could implement our dreams of graphical user interface. So we reoriented Odyssey, the Odyssey effort, to take on a graphical shape and to run specifically on the Macintosh first. And that was the Excel project. Excel did tremendously. The group under the leadership of Jeff Harbers and Doug Lunder did the bulk of the programming, but many others participated. And they did a fantastic job and worked day and night and did this very high quality product that really surprised people of how easy it was to use and how powerful it was at the same time, and really established the Macintosh as a credible business computer, which until that point it was missing. Apple was and still is a visionary company under a visionary leadership. Remember that Microsoft is a software company, and our interest was in software, and we were eager to work on the best hardware available. And even more than that, I think we were really committed to GUI, and it's really a historical accident that through a series of very fortuitous and clever choices, Apple was the first that reached the kind of the configuration and performance with the Macintosh that was able to implement GUI to its fullest. And of course, we were there to exploit it, and we did. We learned a lot from it. The marketplace learned from it. And at the time when the more dominant platform, the Intel IBM compatible platform, inevitably reached the level of sophistication and performance, then we were ready to do the software for that platform, which was, of course, Windows and the porting of the applications Word and Excel and the other programs in the suite to Windows. The issue had to do with our relationship with IBM. Whatever individual merits of these two systems were, one of them was, let's see, burdened by the IBM participation, the other one was not. Those pixels didn't look as good as the square pixels that Macintosh chose for pretty obvious reasons. Now, you could talk, why did IBM choose that strange shape? There are reasons for it, and some of those reasons were even valid in the 1981 or 1980 timeframe when the IBM PC was designed. We had to wait until all of those features of the hardware were gotten rid of or kind of washed out of the system, and you could rely on square pixels that finally. I went to Microsoft Research. I think that the next stage of progress really wasn't my strength. This is really up for marketing people and also for people who can organize larger teams of programmers to implement the ideas of marketing. So that really wasn't my strength, but I did notice that the way we create software is could be perhaps improved, and I joined Microsoft Research, and I started researching this idea of generative programming or intentional programming. And I'm still pursuing those ideas through my own company now called Intentional Software Corporation. I do try to simulate what could be in my head, and I try to refine it, to try just to focus and refine the details and imagine how it would be. And I think that more than anything, you have to be honest with yourself. You cannot just imagine the result of the success. You have to imagine the details, and at each point criticize what could go wrong there, or why was something not done before? What was the reason of not doing it? I think that it's really helpful. I mean, sometimes you find out that in fact the reasons were very strong.
3, 2, 1. Engine ignition.
Preliminary, intermediate.
And liftoff of the Soyuz rocket transporting new residents to the International Space Station.
And there I was in space, amazing. And then it was the last day I spent in space. I woke up and I was wondering, wow, what a nice place to be, and what a nice sleep it is. This is the last time I'm in space. What should I do? Should I sleep? Should I enjoy the sight? You have to decide. And then I had this feeling that maybe this is not the last time. So don't worry about it. So I just enjoyed it. And in fact, the opportunity came up exactly 2 years later, and I was able to go to space again, because now, as a relatively experienced person, I just realized why space organizations send their astronauts or cosmonauts into space more than once, as a matter of course, because they do a much better job the second time. And it's really, you are now acclimatized to space, and you are just much more efficient, and you can accomplish much more, which I did the second time. But it was a tremendous experience. You can take all kinds of mementos, that took my wedding ring, but and other things. but paper tape. The early computer programs were on 8-level paper tape, and I took one of those paper tapes with me. Yes, it kind of to close the circle. It was the work with computers that put me on the path that led eventually, among other things, to the International Space Station. So it seemed like a very appropriate and important memento for my life. Well, if I had to pick one moment, I think it's a moment of the close approach and docking with the space station. It's something that is really beyond of what you imagine, what you can really imagine, and what you have seen in the movies. Saw my crewmates. They are really heroes, and they are the real professional. But everybody's interested. Could I fly? And I think that this possibility is amazing. It's a whole new step in the exploration of space. So I think it's great that Russia has been doing this, and I hope that they will do it in the future.
Do you think it is dangerous?
Which one?